Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillahi wa kafa, wa salatu wa salamu ala ibadihi alladhina astafa, amma ba'du fa'a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, bismillahir rahmanir rahim. لقد كان لكم في رسول الله أسوة حسنة لمن كان يرجو الله واليوم الآخر وذكر الله كثيرا. وقال تعالى: فبما رحمة من الله لنت لهم. وقال تعالى: وما أرسلناك إلا رحمة للعالمين. عن عائشة رضي الله تعالى عنها قالت: إذا أراد الله عز وجل بأهل بيت خيرا أدخل عليهم الرفق. رواه أحمد. وقال عليه الصلاة والسلام: إن الرفق لا يكون في شيء إلا زانه ولا ينزع من شيء إلا شانه. صدق الله العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الكريم ونحن على ذلك لمن الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and His blessings and salutations be upon His most beloved Nabi, our leader and master, Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. First and foremost, we give thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the innumerable bounties that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed on us. I use the word innumerable because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses it in the Quran. He says, وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا. If you try to enumerate the bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you would never be able to do so. And after that, in that surah An-Nahl, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions a whole host of different bounties that He has bestowed on us. Amongst the greatest ones is the bounty of Iman. The fact that we are selected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to carry the kalima La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah in our hearts. Respected elders and friends, the reason why we always start with gratitude and emphasizing gratitude is because it's a command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He mentions every Friday we hear just before we stand up for salah, وَاشْكُرُوا لِي وَلَا تَكْفُرُونَ. Express your gratitude to me and don't express your ingratitude. Elsewhere Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقَلِيلٌ مِّنْ عِبَادِيَ الشَّكُورِ. Very few, only a few of my slaves are actually truly grateful to me. So we need to, first of all, act on the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and express our gratitude. And secondly, it saves us from being part of the majority who are ungrateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Likewise, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives so many different virtues of expressing gratitude. The main one is لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. If you are going to express gratitude, I'm going to increase you. And if you express ingratitude, وَلَئِن كَفَرْتُمْ إِنَّ عَذَابِي لَشَدِيدٌ, then know that my punishment is very severe. So my respected elders and friends, these are just some of the virtues. In fact, if we look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also subtly mentions it with regards to the family of Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam. So Dawood and Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam, extremely wealthy, both kings, very wise. And the more they made shukr for their wisdom, and the more they expressed gratitude for their wealth, the more Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them. I'll give you the example. Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that grant me a kingdom that nobody else before me or after me can get. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted it to him. Elsewhere, he makes shukr. He says, Rabbi awzi'ni an ashkura ni'mataka allati an'amta alayya wa ala walidayya. Oh Allah, continue to allow me to express my gratitude to you. A few lines later, the Hufaz will know and the ulama will know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him the kingdom of Bilqis. He already had a kingdom that nobody can match. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had still given him one more kingdom. He commanded everything and one more, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these are just some of the virtues of expressing gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why we express gratitude for our iman? Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam mentions that fitanun qita'il laylil mudlima. Certainly, so in the start of the hadith he says, do actions at your earliest convenience. Rush towards doing good actions, because trials, tribulations, attacks on your iman, attacks on your belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to come to you like the darkness of the night. How does this mean? What does this mean? If we look how the night comes, slowly in stages. After Zawal, the sun starts getting dimmer, setting, and then it gets red, and then it gets yellow, and then it gets completely dark. Likewise, we find a normalization of the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Things previously we would never think people would argue about being halal, being haram, is now being normalized. Different haram things being normalized. Obviously the main one being the whole LGBTQ, etc. these types of ideologies. So this is what some commentators mention, that slowly things will be normalized. So we make shukr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for our iman, so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increases our iman. This sort of serves as a guarantee that we will pass away on iman, because of our gratitude for iman. Respected elders and friends, the second greatest bounty given to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is being part of the greatest ummah to walk the face of this earth, the ummah of Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praises this ummah in the Quran. Kuntum khayra ummah. Certainly you are the best of ummah. Why are we the greatest ummah? Is because we followers of the greatest man. We have to get that right. And it's only right that the followers of the greatest man try to emulate the greatest man. And that means we should emulate Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. If we look in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions very clearly, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. Certainly in Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam is a role model for you, an exemplary role model for you. Somebody for you to latch on to his habits, his ways, etc. Why? لِمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو اللَّهِ. For the one who hopes to gain the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For the one who hopes to gain success in the year after. Second one. Third one, وَذَكَرُ اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا. And for the one who wants to continuously remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in order to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continuously, gain His pleasure and success in the akhirah, we need to emulate Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it extremely easy for us to do this. How? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted the followers of Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam for the last 1,000 years to document his life, study his life, deconstruct, dissect his life in all different facets. Generally we find what was Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam's ibadat like. The multiple ahadith, how he would read salah, how he would keep fast, how he would pay zakat, how he would do his hajj, etc. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it so that this has been preserved. Likewise, his business dealings. What was he like as a business person? Not only as a prophet, but before becoming a prophet as well. Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam was known as Al-Amin, most trustworthy. This was before Nubuwwat. And people would leave their belongings with him, leave their things in trust with him, because they knew he's very trustworthy, he'll give it back in full, it won't even get lost. And after Nubuwwat, if we look at the demise of Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, he left some collateral, his armor that he used to fight with, he left it as collateral by a Jew in lieu of some dates that he bought. I can't afford it now, here's collateral. In the event that I can't pay you, sell the collateral and keep the money in lieu of the dates. This is also part of being trustworthy. I leave the collateral with you. So his business dealings as well. And his mu'asharat. How Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam dealt with different people in his life. People who were not Muslim, the kafir, how he would address them, what was his demeanor towards them. Then the believers who were close to him, believers who just came as delegates to him, they came, they spent 1-2 weeks with Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam and went away. Believers who were his very close friends, Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, believers who were his wives, Aisha and the rest of the Azwaj Mutahharat, his daughters, etc., how he would, his son-in-laws, his cousins, etc. So all of this has been documented. And this is what we want to speak about today. What was Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam's dealings in his house? And why we should go ahead and do that. The first thing is we have to understand Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam's natural disposition. What was he generally like? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in multiple verses, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. We sent you as a mercy to the believers and to not the believers, to the whole world. So that was it. Very merciful. We see he got stoned in Taif, he didn't curse them. Angels came and said, let's flip these mountains on them. He said, no, don't do that, I'll make dua for hidayah. This was from his mercy. Elsewhere Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ. It is only by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you are so kind and soft to those around you. Your demeanor to them is very welcoming, very warm. وَلَوْ كُنْتَ ضَبًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. If you were very aggressive, if you were very harsh, if you're very hard-hearted toward them, they leave you alone. How are you going to draw them in if you're going to be in this way? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had granted Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam this disposition, that your natural state is to be calm, kind and gentle. See this. Likewise, Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam himself would encourage it. Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha mentions to the effect that Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam said, Inna rifqa la yakunu fi shay'in illa zana. Kindness, calmness, gentleness is not found in any situation except that it beautifies that situation. It makes it a pleasant experience. وَلَا يُنْزَعُ مِنْ شَيْءٍ إِلَّا شَانَ. But when this calmness, kindness and gentleness is taken out, then it becomes a very distasteful interaction, a very distasteful and unpalatable interaction. And we find that when somebody is nice to you, they warm to you, it's pleasant. These are simple things that Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam would encourage. So my respected elders and friends, being the month of Shawwal, being the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam married Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha in Shawwal, married Sayyidah Sauda radiallahu ta'ala in Shawwal, married Salama radiallahu ta'ala anha in Shawwal. So the commentators of hadith say this is the month to get married. So if anybody wants to planning their weddings, then try to plan it for Shawwal. Obviously you can do it in any month, but they say there is a sort of, because Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam married these women in this month, it is actually mustahab, it is a good thing. And with that, I would like to speak about being gentle in the house. How do you address your home life? And we're going to take this from Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam and how the sahabiyat etc. would describe Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. So why would we do this? You see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intends good for certain people. And from here we see the hadith, إِذَا أَرَادَ اللَّهُ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ بِأَهْلِ بَيْتٍ خَيْرًا أَدْخَلَ عَلَيْهِمُ الرِّفْقَ. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intends good for the people of a household, He enters upon them kindness and gentleness. So we know Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam's disposition was kindness. We also know that we have to emulate Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. We also know that it is by emulating him, it is a form of remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Thus, if we emulate Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam's home life, in our home life, it will serve as a source of goodness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a source of blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a source of barakah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So then the question comes then, so what was the ways of Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam's life? Firstly, an Anas ibn Malik radiyallahu ta'ala anhu قال لي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يا بني إذا دخلت على أهلك فسلم يكن بركة عليك وعلى أهل بيتك. Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu, first let's explain his relationship with Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. When Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam came to Medina, Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu was 10 years old. His mother said, you are now going to be the khadim, the servant of Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. You tend to his every need. So he was always in and out of the house, very close to Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. For 10 years he was in the service of Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam tells him, Ya bunay, oh my child, oh my son, oh my boy, when you enter the house, then make salam. It's going to be a source of goodness for you, a source of barakah for you and for your family. We already see how this is an expression of kindness and gentleness. When you enter the house, you make salam. Obviously, there are other ahadith which say when you make salam, then all the evil jinn, etc., leave the house. Those are separate, but this here we're speaking specifically of being kind and your demeanor in the household. So from the time we enter with the right foot, as Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam would, making salam. The second thing I want to bring your attention to in this hadith, in Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam's speech was Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu was 10, 11, 12, whatever it was. So whenever this hadith was mentioned, Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam was at least 20, 30 years older than him, even maybe 40 years older than Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Look at how he addressed him with such kindness. Ya bunay. If we look at this word bunay in the Arabic language, it comes from the word bani, my son, but it is made smaller for endearment. Oh my child, oh my darling boy. When you enter, he was advising him in this way. So we should try to bring this as well. We find also with little people who are older, but younger than Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. So when Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu was going for Umrah, so he came to Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam to tell him, I'm going for Umrah, make dua, etc. You agreed. So Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam told him to the effect, Ya ukhay, ashrikni fi du'aik, aw kama qala alayhi salatu wasalam. He said, oh my little brother, remember us in your du'as when you go there. And he gave him a few advices. Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu says the advices in the dua was one, but how he addressed me, that's what struck me. He regarded me as a little brother. Ya ukhay, oh my little brother, when you go do this. So we see that how you address the next person that is younger than you. Normally we say respect the elders, and that's in its place, and that's emphasized. But we should also respect those younger with our words, etc. So those are the two things. When you enter, make salam, and when you are addressing somebody younger than you, especially your children or whatever it may be, address them in a kind way. Normally it's like, pass me the water, go get this for me. A little bit kind, a little bit harsh words. Perhaps you have a different relationship, but whatever we do, try to remember how Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam had done it. Thereafter, Jabir radiallahu ta'ala anhu narrates that Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam said, Kullu ma'rufin sadaqa. Every type of good deed you do is a charity. And therefore it's going to be evidence for you on the day of Qiyamah. وَإِنَّ مِنَ الْمَعْرُوفِ أَن تَلْقَى أَخَاكَ بِوَجْهٍ طَلْقٍ. Certainly from good actions is that you meet your brother with a pleasant demeanor, with a smile, with calm, kind, warmth. You draw them in with your facial expression. بِوَجْهٍ طَلْقٍ, a very happy face. We all have our individual battles. We all are going through something. As a country, as an ummah, we're going through it. As Muslim ummah, our brothers everywhere are just going through hardships. We just hear about our Chinese brothers in the Uyghurs. We hear about our Palestinians. We hear about our Syrians. Now the Turkish with the earthquake. So much of sadness. Likewise in our own case, the lights go, how we feel. Sometimes there's water, sometimes there isn't. But that's sadness. But don't project it onto the next person. Rather meet them. We all have our struggles. The last thing we need is our interactions to also lose this pleasantness, this rift that we are trying to speak about. We find Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha was asked, how was Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam's demeanor? Kana bassaman. He was always smiling. Nabi alayhi salam had the world's, literally had the world's worries and anxieties on his shoulder. How am I going to save my ummah? How am I going to get the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? He had so much, yet Basaman. He'll meet you with a smiling face. Always very biwajhin taliqin. So that's it too. So when we enter the house, regardless of what happened, you enter with a smiling. Regardless of what you are going through in your marriage or with your children, always approach it with a pleasant demeanor. In this hadith, Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam also says, وَأَن تُفْرِغَ مِن دَلْوِكَ فِي إِنَاءِ أَخِيكَ, that you pour from your bucket into the bucket of your brother. I'll give a quick context. Generally, that those times you would have to use the bucket to put in the well. So it's a bit of hard labor. You tie your bucket, send it down, pull it up. Now only half came, so you throw it there. You send the bucket down again. Now your friend comes and he wants to mooch off your hard labor. Like, you want to throw some for me so that he doesn't. So now you're there in the sun in the desert, busy pulling out your bucket of water, and somebody's just coming to take your water. Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam says, don't be unpleasant about it. Give him some water. This is going to serve for you, as a charitable action for you. On the day of Qiyamah, maybe this is the action that takes you into Jannah. It's the one that tips the scales. How is this applicable in our context? Alhamdulillah, sometimes we have flowing water, sometimes we don't have from our taps. But many of us, the water cuts, water shedding wouldn't really affect us because we got our Jojo tanks, we got our boreholes. But does your neighbor have it? 5 houses down, do they have it? Across the street, do they have it? This is how you would apply it here. They need water, you give them the water. They need to use your own buckets, give them. That is how that works. Even on a smaller scale, nobody, when we're all sitting and eating together, nobody wants to open the cold drink first because then I'm the water guy. I have to now pour for everybody. So then we just wait for the next person to open. No, be the first to open it, and then you pour for everyone and pour for yourself last. We see it is a charitable action. Lastly, I will end on this, is to avoid sin. So I have a few ahadith here. I'll just go through them quickly. One is to eat together. So in the house, specify a meal, ideally all 3 meals, or whenever you're eating, you eat together. But at least one meal, perhaps we have, we understand some are working, some are in school, whatever it is, but at least one meal we eat together. Why? فَإِنَّ الْبَرَكَةَ مَعَ الْجَمَاعَةِ. Because the blessing, the barakah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with the group, with the congregation. You sit together, you eat together. Yes, one is your family, but perhaps on other days you call everybody else, extended family, neighbors, whatever it is. We all sit together, we eat together. This is how you draw the barakah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that can be expressed as gentleness and pleasantness in your house. Lastly, you can do all the good And if you are doing sin with that, it cancels out. Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam mentions to the effect, a person is going to come on the day of Qiyamah. He read so much tahajjud, so much of Quran, so much of this action, so much of that action. But at the same time, he was swearing that person, and he was backbiting that person, and he was fighting with another person. And what's going to happen on the day of Qiyamah? It's time to pay. It's the day of recompense. This person will come, you wronged me in this way, take a deed. Another person will come, take a deed. To the point, you are going to have a person who does this will have no deeds left. Now what's going to happen? He'll start collecting other people's bad deeds. This is how Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam explained it to us, that on the day of Qiyamah, this is how the scales would work. So avoid being, this is the thrust. Avoid being unpleasant. It's also a good action. Especially when you have you like sometimes somebody comes and interacts with you, you say, I can show this guy. I have the power, I can show him what I'll do to him. That's the point when you have to step back. Another is when you can't do anything about it. Then you want to use the hadith, but when you actually have some way of doing it, and then to step back and avoid that unpleasant situation, this is where it counts. Our pious predecessors, Fudail bin Iyad radiallahu ta'ala anhu mentions, stay away from sin. Why? He says, whenever I would sin, I would always see the repercussion of it in the disobedience of my wife, in the disobedience of my camel, and in the rats in my house. The rats in my house. Three things. Whenever I sin, I found one of three things. Our house, maybe cockroaches, maybe even rats. Wife is fighting with me today. Children are fighting with me today. Thirdly, car trouble. Three things. So stay away from sin. If you're not doing any of the good actions, no problem. But stay away from sin. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the ability, the understanding to emulate Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, to continuously be in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all the ability to be gentle in our houses and with those around us. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.